What's the most embarrassingly awkward situation you ever encountered while staying at a friend's house as a kid? I used to sleep under his bed, don't ask. One morning, I woke up, but for whatever reason, I thought I was in the bathroom and I just peed right there. I blamed the dog and asked for a pair of his underwear because I spilled water on myself. He knew. Sorry, I have to ask why. Being exposed to my best friend's abusive father. This guy was a piece of work. I remember cowering in misery at the dinner table and saying I wanted to go home. I also realized how awful it was that my friend was stuck in this environment 24/7 whereas I could escape fairly quickly. Ugh. But for the grace of God go I. Friend of mine always bragged about the size of his penis. Said that it ran in his family. Anyway, he invites me and a few other friends over to watch movies and spend the night. In the middle of the night his dad gets up to pee with no clothes on. His penis was swinging between his legs at least 10-12 inches. He had to step over us to get through. We all tried to pretend to sleep, but started giggling and laughing. Never doubted my buddy again. What the frick kind of crap is this? Mine was at a sleepover. When I was about 8, I was dreaming about how badly I had to pee. In my dream, I sat on the toilet and with a sigh of relief, peed. I woke up from the dream, in the middle of peeing myself. I was sleeping on the floor, in a now sopping wet comforter. That's happened to me before. Since then, I always check that I'm not sleeping before I start to pee. 13-year-old me was at a friend's house for a sleepover. We were sleeping in the entertainment room, which was right next to his parents' bedroom. We then hear a rhythm of soft thuds. The pace begins to pick up. I wasn't too sure what it was at first, but then another kid leans over to my friend and asks, "Are your parents freaking?" My friend stayed quiet. I could tell that with every thud his childhood was being chiseled away. The morning after a sleepover, the girl's mom went inside this little shop to grab donuts and we all waited in the car. While we waited, we started being snoopy and going through the glove box. We found many pictures of her mom eating cake off of her dad's penis. Those pictures were never spoken of again. Hope I'm not too late. In first grade, my best friend Will and I used to roll up in blankets and caterpillar around his house. We called this taco time. One day we tacoed right into his parents' room. His parents were doing a doggy on the bed, and we were all curled up in blankets watching. They noticed, screamed, and we tacoed out of there as fast as we could. I laughed so hard at taco time lol. My best friend's mom was an alcoholic and his dad was a pilot, so he was frequently gone. His mother was beautiful, but when she drank she was a horrible person. One night when we were about 12, we were sitting on the floor playing a board game and his mother came in the room drunk and naked. I felt bad for my friend. We just kept our eyes glued to the game, not daring to look up. She was yelling about him for something but he just answered her without looking at her. Then she went and sat in a chair next to us and fell asleep. Then I said something like, "I have some new baseball cards. Do you want to go see them?" So we ran over to my house and I whispered to my mother, "Mrs. Jones is drunk. Can Bobby sleep here?" We had 6 kids in a small house but my mother made room for us to sleep in the den. The sad thing is they moved, but I caught up with him years later and invited him to my wedding. He came and got drunk. When I was like 13, my friend's little 9-year-old brother chased his handicapped 6-year-old brother around with their mom's douchebag yelling, "Mom puts this in her pee." Just then, my friend's mom, who I had never met, happens to come home to catch them doing this and the older one told her that I found the douchebag and told him to do it. I just left. I sneaked out with my friend so to scout about the neighborhood at night, came back, and found his mom's boyfriend passed out drunk on the couch with his pants down and his hand on his junk. I once found my brother asleep on the sofa, trousers down, dong in hand. Sounds like the classic post-masturbatory nap. Me and one other guy were at a friend's house, went to watch a music video on his computer, not on the internet, and well, our 10-year-old selves didn't see it coming. Girl getting fricked, close up of her vagina etc. We ran away from the screen. One of my friends was convinced he had ejaculated. I guess you could say your friend didn't see it coming. Went with my friend and his mom to her brother's house. Early 80s and they sat the kids in the living room and they had an illegal copy of heavy metal playing for us. I was probably 10. Heard quiet then laughing from the adults room. The talk about bulls and ounces. Then friend's mom came in and quickly said let's go. Kinda figured years later they were doing coke and then started fighting about a deal gone bad. I had a sleepover at my house with this one girl. I was 10, she was 12. We were both big fans of Harry Potter, and we talked about it before going to bed. She kept going on about how sexy she found Harry, which I thought was weird since I wasn't yet at the age where I thought about these things. Anyway, we went to bed. I was always pretty flighty. It took me a good hour to make myself fall asleep, but the other girl fell asleep quickly. Then, she started talking in her sleep. I had never known anyone who talked in their sleep before. Took me years to find out I did it, so I thought this was some sort of game. I recall she was saying something about loving Harry, so I started talking back to her, whispering in her ear that I was Harry while giggling. She freaking launches at me, supposedly in her sleep, and starts touching me in awkward places while muttering how much she loves Harry. I shoved her off. No easy task. She was rather large and I was a skinny goblin of a kid, and jumped up from the floor we were sleeping onto my bed, curled up by the wall and freaked out. She started crying and begging Harry to come back. I just sat there and stared out the window, trying to ignore it until I fell asleep on my bed. The next morning she seemed perfectly cheerful and normal. I chose not to bring it up, ever, at all. I still don't know if she was actually asleep and just took a joke too far or genuinely was trying to get me. TLDR. Was partially molested by a supposedly sleeping friend who thought I was Harry Potter. Had a friend years ago who showed me his pee stash. As a young teen who had never seen tentacle hentai sex before, I was creeped out and left as soon as I could. I caused a hilariously awkward situation because I thought it was funny. I was visiting my, later I learned highly religious, new friend's house for the first time. His parents made steak for dinner and as we sit down at the table, I grab the steak knife, hold it up, and with a 100-yard stare quietly say, I haven't been allowed to hold knives since the incident. The room was silent, and I continued to stare at it for a good 20 seconds before I began laughing my butt off. Later I was told I seriously freaked out his family and my friend was mortified, but they were able to look back on it and laugh. I was probably like 12 at the time. Does 17 qualify as being a kid? I'll tell my story anyway. I was at my girlfriend's house and we were getting down and dirty. We were home alone, but her dad was right downstairs the whole time. She was making noises that were definitely audible from downstairs. We finished up and went downstairs, and her dad was sitting right there on a sofa. Hey Chris, how are you? He said. I had no idea what to say. I awkwardly said hi to him. He asked me to join them for dinner. The entire dinner I was expecting him to leap across the table and kick my butt. He didn't. He seemed relatively jolly the entire time. For me and my girlfriend it was the most awkward dinner we've ever had. Was led to the cool older brother's room to hang out. Older brother proceeds to show us his stash of P magazines. Hardcore stuff. I was 8 years old. Mind blown. He then tries to show us through his pants how big his dong is by stretching the garment and pushing his dong around somehow. He was trying to prove to us that his dong was bigger than the ones of the guys in the magazines. Mind confused. Also because the friend whose house it was and who was standing there was his sister. That is, a girl, on which I had a crush and who appeared totally fine with that whole setup. Mind, how the frick do I handle this situation? After due consideration of whether it would impress her if I entered into the show your dong show as well, 8-year-old me turned around, said I think I have to pee, and left for the bathroom. Still wondering whether otherwise this would have ended in some weird incest pedo trauma. My friend's dad had a heart attack and died in the bedroom. This was when we were about 6 or 7. My friend's mom called my parents to come pick me up, but due to certain circumstances neither of them arrived until several hours later. I kind of locked myself in the bathroom and pretended I couldn't hear anything while the mom explained everything to my friend and her siblings. I was reminiscing with my oldest friend about how we met. He has always had a weird family, but he recently told me of a conspiracy between my mom and himself to always be at my house instead of me ever going there. Was at my friend's house when she got into a fight with her parents. A massive fight involving lots of screaming and some hitting. I just stood there and watched until her dad shuffled me downstairs to watch TV. I had just moved to a new area and was making new friends. The first time I get a kid to stay the night at my house, his cat dies while he is away. Very awkward pick up the next morning. Also, I was staying the night at a friend's house when the mom found out she was pregnant again. She didn't want another kid, and we could hear her sobbing all night. Was at a friend's house when I was 10 and his dad casually and gently punched me in the stomach in a total joking manner. It hurt so bad I crumpled over and cried for hours. Turns out my appendix had burst and I had lymphoma. We joke about it now saying he gave me cancer. This wasn't when I was staying at their house, but afterwards I could never stay there again. I was 18 and had been best friends with the girl that lived across the street from me. Let's call her Sue since I was 3. I had recently been hired at a pea store and was still nervous around the shelves of butt plugs and pervy old man customers. My boss noticed and started chastising me, telling me that I needed to appear comfortable and talk to the customers, or they wouldn't feel comfortable and I would be fired. So, I decided to do just that. The next person in the door, I thought, I'll be cool and calm and talk to them about foot fetishes. The bell rang when I was in the back, stocking DVDs. By the time I came out, the guy had his back to me, looking through the dildo wall. He already had a giant one, think John Holmes dildo, in his hands. So, I stepped up behind him and said, "Oh, that's a great model. We sell quite a number of those and everyone always seems very satisfied when they come back." The dude turns around and it's Sue's father, a man who watched me grow up and who made me lunches when I was 9 and put band-aids on my scraped knees, holding an enormous plastic penis, complete with bulgy veins and all. We locked eyes and when the realization hit, I'm sure the look on my face mirrored the mortified look on his. He put down the gigantic dong without saying a word. I did an about face and marched straight back into the back of the store. He left. We have never spoken about it, and every time I see him, I know he's remembering it too. I told my dad a few years after it happened. He burst out laughing, telling me that I had probably ruined a great night for Sue's mother. Dear Lord. Sleepover at my house. My best friend and I were in my room watching a movie and I fell asleep around 10. I woke up to her nudging me violently because apparently my goddamn parents decided it was the night they were going to make their headboard slap the wall over and over and over. Our bedrooms shared a wall and my folks were so obnoxious about it. My friend was mortified so we went in the basement and waited until we felt it was safe. I didn't have friends over much. I was about 14-15 years old. Have had to wear diapers for a lot of my life. I pretty much own it now, but then, it was pretty embarrassing. Obviously, was staying at a good friend's house for a week or so. He knew I had to wear them, but his other friend who was there with us hanging out for the first night of the week did not. Long story short, I'm getting set to changing on the floor in the bathroom when unknowing friend walks in on me, pajama pants off, laying on the floor in a wet diaper. He laughs at me while I sit there not having any idea what to do in shock, and then he takes my bag of supplies, powder, extra diapers and throws them outside into the pool. So now I'm stuck in the bathroom with nothing to change into. Long story short, his mom had to go down to Walgreens and buy me a new pack while I waited crying in their bathroom in a wet diaper at 14 years old, and I had to watch his dad retrieve my spares from the pool, and I was there for a week. So we're talking maybe 25 plus diapers, half of which were for nighttime and thus more absorbent, all expanding to full capacity. That's maybe 75 pounds of wet trash that had to be pulled from the pool. It took a long time, and he wouldn't let me help. Not that I really wanted to sit there crying and doing that anyway. Story ends nicely though because the other friend was banned from the house. He managed to frick up one of the pool filters pretty badly after a diaper floated in there and burst. His parents had to pay to fix it, and my friend didn't really like him anymore after that, and the whole family was really nice to me about it and the rest and the pool was fixed within 2 days. So that was fun, but that whole night was just the worst. Wow, that's rough. People can be so mean and glad your friend and his family supported you. I was at a friend's house and we went over to pet his dog, an old golden retriever. She did not move when he touched her. and we soon realized she was not moving or breathing at all. He got his father, who came over and confirmed that she had passed away in her sleep. The whole family was crying and I was a little too young to really grasp how sad it was to lose the family dog, even in such a peaceful way. I suppose it was really sad, more than it was really awkward. My parents had to come pick me up so that they could grieve as a family. I was at my childhood best friend's house after a sleepover. We were maybe 10. We went to play a game on the home desktop, but someone had left Playgirl up. It had to have been either her younger brother who was always on the computer or her mom. She jumped to the brother conclusion, relentlessly teasing him as soon as we saw it, and for weeks, if not years after, I just sat there uncomfortably until my parents picked me up. Waking up as her dad was playing the role of the Tooth Fairy, he froze and we both stared at each other. I rolled over and went back to bed and nothing was mentioned about it, ever. I hope he looked the part. When I was about 12 I slept over at my friend's house. I didn't really know them well but we wound up sleeping in her living room. The girl was my friend's neighbor. When I woke up in the morning her older brother was spooning me. He wasn't even in the room when we went to sleep and I didn't even know the kid. I just woke up freaked out and left. I was a very drawn kid. There was a lot of physical mental abuse in my family. So anyway I got invited by this girl to spend the night her. I was stunned but so happy. During the night we were sleeping on the floor together. She started crying and I didn't know what to do and never let her know I was awake. My back was to her. Her daddy came in and was asking her what the matter was. She told him that she didn't want me there but she wanted her best friend whom I guess she had been mad at. He told her he'd take me home in the and they'd pick up her friend. I never let on that I was awake and right there hearing all of this. I don't think I ever stayed anyone again. I was crushed and never told anyone this. Makes me sad now to even think of this. Thanks OP. Well I have my 2 cuties now and I feel blessed. Oil, that's rough. Early high school. A group of us were staying over at a friend's, playing D&D. We played well into the night and for whatever reason I fell asleep sitting at the dining room table. Now keep in mind, his mom was a pastor. So there I am, asleep in a dining room chair. My leg falls asleep. I mean really badly. I wake up at 3-4 in the morning, my leg completely numb. I try to stand up and immediately fall over with a crash. So there I am on the floor with my leg almost paralyzed but the blood returning. The pins and needles were showing up. It was very painful. Still mostly asleep. I start punching my leg, no idea why, and swearing like a sailor. I mean I was almost poetic in my profanity. I don't know how long I was doing this but suddenly there's my friend's mom and sister at the bottom of the stairs, staring at me like she had just caught me murdering her son. I don't think she liked me very much after that. Late to the game, but here it goes. Was spending the night at my friend's house. Being the 13-year-old girls that we were watching the movie Grease and dancing around the living room. During Grease lighting, my friend's mom storms out of her room and screams at her daughter, "Why are you dancing like that? You look like a whale. You're so fat." Keep in mind my friend was 5'2" and weighed max 105 pounds. Friend storms off to her room crying. I chase after her. I try to comfort her, and when she stops crying I tell her that I should probably go. I'm 5'3" and weighed roughly 180 pounds at the time. I was just imagining what her mom thought about my weight. Just then her mom comes barging into her room, drags her by the arm into the bathroom and tells her, "Look at your arms in the mirror. You see how round they are? That's because you're fat." My friend is sobbing at this point, begging her mom to stop. And then I hear her say, "How do you think I feels?" She thinks you're calling her fat, so the mom comes to see me and tells me that I shouldn't feel bad. I'm naturally big boned and I could never be skinny, and even if I did get skinny, it wouldn't look good. Stood there awkwardly as she pat me on the back and walked away. Sobbed myself to sleep that night and left the next morning before she woke up. Still cringe over the awkwardness of that argument. Thanks B. When I was around 10 years old, I peed my pants while spending the night at my friend's. I ran to her room to change my shorts, but when I went back out there, her sister was sniffing around with a grossed out look on her face. I played dumb about any stink. Then I did it again. The problem was, when I would laugh, it would open the gates. So I tried desperately not to laugh at jokes or anything funny, to avoid any embarrassment, but to no avail. I was too afraid to talk to my mom about it, so I went years with the problem. Once I got to my friend's house and he was just there, naked, sitting in front of the computer desk. I played like it was nothing. He also did. He eventually got dressed by his mother. I went to a friend's house for a sleepover, my first, when I was about 10. Mind you, this was in the early 60s, so no video games, and only B&W TV. To further clarify this picture, I grew up in Texas, and my whole family went to the Church of Christ every Sunday morning, Sunday evening and every Wednesday evening. For those of you unfamiliar, the Koch and my family was way more conservative than the Southern Baptists, and my family was way into ignorance is bliss, no information on sex, love, rock and roll, music or anything that I or my siblings might find the least bit interesting. If I had ever walked into the bathroom and found my dad shaving wearing only his pajamas, we would both be extremely embarrassed and uncomfortable. This was normal as far as I knew. So my friend and I and his parents are sitting in the living room watching the Beverly Hillbillies or Bonanza or something, and his two sisters walk into the room and lie down on the floor in front of us to watch the show. The younger one, about 8 or 9, is wearing white cotton panties with no shirt, and the older one, about 12, is wearing the same kind of panties and a cut-off undershirt that left nothing to the imagination. I had so many strange, powerful new feels hit me so fast and hard that I kind of stopped breathing for a moment. I just froze on the sofa and tried to stop staring at the two of them lying on the floor. And the next thing I noticed was that I was the only one who noticed anything out of the ordinary. I remember desperately trying to concentrate on the TV show, but it was hopeless. I don't remember my friend even noticing my state of embarrassment, or his parents either. As soon as the TV show ended, the two girls got up, kissed their parents goodnight and went to bed. I never said anything to any of them, and as far as I know they never knew how freaked out I was. The next day, after my parents had picked me up, they asked me how the sleepover went and I said okay. I had no idea what to say or how to tell them what had happened or even what had happened. And I remember my mother saying something like, well, we were a little concerned, seeing as how they're Catholics and all. So I grew up, for a while, thinking that Catholics were having all the fun in the world, sinning all over the place. Was in 7th or 8th grade, can't remember, and my friend Tyler was having a birthday party sleepover. So there are probably 10 of us there playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and having a water gun fight. Middle school kid crap. Well, his family has 2 computers, one in Tyler's room and one in the living room. Tyler's computer didn't have internet. Now the story is set up. So it's about 1 or 2 AM and everyone is in the living room except this new guy I met and me. We were playing School Tycoon. Mixing it up, I know, and we decided to look for P on his computer. Surely he had found a way to download P on his computer. What 13-year-old boy wouldn't? We start searching through every folder and file on his computer. Eventually we find a hidden one named Schoolwork and sure enough, there is a video in there. We open it up and we see a homemade video of a girl with a penis jacking off. So after 3 seconds, we close the video and are convinced that Tyler likes Shem LP. We do the only thing boys our age do. We go get another friend and show him. Repeat this a couple times and now we have all 10 guys, except Tyler, in the room watching the video. That is when we realize that the TV remote on the bed in which this Shemel is jerking it, looks like the one right next to the keyboard. Then we notice that the bed is the exact same as the one behind us. Ding, that isn't a girl jerking it, that's Tyler. He had long California style blonde hair. He had set his camera up and recorded himself masturbating, and now everyone at the sleepover had seen it. Breakfast was awkward, especially since he knew we found his video. When I was younger, I was having a sleepover at my best friend's house. She had an older brother who was about 19 at the time, and he was going through a rough patch in his life where he was slowly getting into drugs. We were sitting in her family room the day Pope John Paul II was dying. All of a sudden, her front door gets kicked in. There was so much screaming. 5 or 6 police officers burst through the door, guns drawn, looking for a fight, to arrest her older brother, who had apparently just come back from selling C to an undercover cop. He came downstairs completely out of it and he was arrested. The police officer proclaimed that he was being arrested for trafficking of narcotics, possession of this, manufacturing that, prostitution, somehow, and a few other things. It was so awkward afterwards. His parents were in complete shock, disappointment, and disbelief, and his mother was weeping uncontrollably, that I kindly excused myself and made the 2-hour walk home to avoid it. Mother and father got into a heated argument which resulted in him slapping her and then throwing her over a fence. Worst thing, my friend just kept playing Super Nintendo with his eyes glazed. There were 3 of us at a friend's house when we were around age 8 and we were hungry, so my friend asked if we could have something to eat and her mom was like, "No, we can't afford to feed everyone." Then she gave us 1 taquito each. It was the first time when I visited my friend's house. His mother left us home alone for a while and went to buy some food. I decided to explore their apartment, so I walked into his mom's bedroom and started opening some drawers. I found a dildo here. I was 7 years old, so I didn't know what it is. She walked into the room just after I picked it up from the drawer. She seemed terrified and called my mother to pick me up. I realized the awkwardness of this situation few years later. My friend getting beat with a metal spatula by her mother because she didn't change out of her school clothes as soon as she got home. I was sitting downstairs the whole time. We were playing apples to apples with his family and a family friend. My friend happens to be black. His parents are white. Anyways, the adjective was earthy and I thought I had the perfect card. The Williams sisters. Needless to say, it got pretty awkward after that. I used to sleepwalk when I was a kid. Never knew I did until my friend's parents told me that I repeatedly kept trying to crawl in their bed. Same friend. One night his dad came home pretty late from the bar. He walked into the bedroom, dropped his shorts, lifted the toy box lid and began pee. His wife followed him in to tell his drunk self that he was not in the bathroom. When I was probably 12, I went to a friend's house for a sleepover. When we finally went to bed, she tells me that she normally can't fall asleep without masturbating first. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.